everyone. Welcome back to the Leasing Highway, a podcast that's focused and dedicated to the heartbeat of the apartment industry and brought to you by the Apartment Association of Metro Denver. I am Ian Andrews.
And I am Karen Gladney. We're your co-hosts. And today we are super excited, Victoria, to welcome you. So excited, Director of Education and Outreach for Pet Screening. So with that, Victoria, everybody has met us before, but why don't you introduce yourself and share your background?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you both and the Apartment Association of Metro Denver so much. Great fun to be with you here today. Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of background. I'm a unicorn. When I go into most rooms in the industry, the folks in the room did not get into the industry on purpose. I in fact, did get into the industry on purpose, so it makes me kind of the unicorn in most rooms.
For sure.
I literally contacted an owner. I was 18 years old, and I had a little bit of knowledge of the industry from some folks I'd met. And I contacted an owner and asked him if he had any openings. And he said, no, not now. And I said, well, who covers for your managers when they're off? He said, we don't have anybody for that. I said, well, don't you need someone for that? So he said, all right, let's meet. And it was really pretty cool. He asked me to go take a look at the model and then come back and sell it to him. And I did. And I guess I did okay because he offered me the job that I asked for that didn't exist. And I was 18. That was a great introduction to the industry and a fabulous memory. I think, selling from the start and quickly falling in love with the industry and its members was just an easy, natural thing. My best initial memory as a new industry member was being a full-time college student at night and working in the property management industry in the day for that gentleman, Norman Nierenblatt. And I'm forever indebted to him. Because, he told me when all the work was done, I could do my full-time college homework. So it was such a gift. Another precious memory from that time was, having written a paper about the relationship of my maintenance supervisor and his wife for one of my college classes, and then being asked to read it as his eulogy at his funeral. Fast forward. Yeah, that was really tough in front of his wife and all of his kids. But I had given them a copy of the paper I'd written about their marriage as a gift.
Oh my gosh.
And his wife asked me to read it at his funeral. So I've always loved my maintenance folks. Fast forward, I kept managing. I went on to 3 more companies in the direct space. Enjoyed managing a portfolio that included conventional apartments, subsidized apartments, Section 8 work. Love that. Love the folks who do that. Mobile home community management, and homeowner associations. So along the way, I earned my degree. I helped to found the local Charleston Apartment Association, later became its president of the South Carolina Apartment Association, and then served on the board at NAA. What an honor for a number of years, and I chaired 4 of their committees, a couple of times, some of them. I remember Alex Jackie asking me how many times I wanted to be the PAC chair. And then I guess, the other thing I would share is that I was a regional vice president for NAA, and that I'm a wife of 32 years.
Oh my.
A mother of a 20-year-old college junior, started today, who objected strenuously to the standard first day back to school picture that we've been taking since kindergarten. She said, no. I said, yes. I said, college isn't cheap. I get a picture. That's your and grades and a picture. I am a runner and also a public policy junkie, I guess I'd say. So that's me. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, incredible background. I mean, you have so much amazing experience, and I love the fact that you intentionally had to cross a barrier to get into the industry. Constantly we hear everyone just like somehow accidentally ends up in the industry and can never leave, but for you to actually talk your way into it is amazing, and I think a huge reason why you've had so much success and experience here. Curious, with all your different roles in the industry, what are some of your biggest passion points?
Oh, that's, the association management and all the work the associations do is definitely a big passion point for me, a big point of gratitude. For me personally, what I get to do, education and legislation have always been my jam and jelly. The intersection of those independently, each one by itself. I found myself teaching half of the property management licensing course for a number of years here in South Carolina. I did that from 10 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night till 10 o'clock at night. So, I must have loved it because I and all the students had worked all day. And at some points, my words would combine and make really interesting new words that we'd all have a really great laugh about. But the teaching is a great thing for me that I've always loved. And then I spent a number of years on the NAA Legislative Committee and going to NAA every March for Advocate and talking to members, congressional DC members here in the General Assembly in South Carolina, all things legislation, which led me to being Rick Graff's legislative chairperson last year for NAA. That legislative side work is incredibly important to me. Recently, I get to facilitate, though, as director of ed for pet screening a whole lot and becoming a member of the NAA, it's a tough to say, NAAEI faculty. So those pieces of the passion puzzle, showed me clearly, which directions I really, really loved. And it's that education and legislation. And I even do the legislative stuff offline in my own time. Like I said, I'm a bit of a public policy junkie.
Just whenever you can find time, just diving into that. Victoria, your story, oh my word. Just one, I love the resourcefulness, of getting how you got into the industry and just diving in and going after what you want. And then the fact that you've had so many different roles, from the operations side, being so involved in education and legislation, and then now being on the vendor side too. Your perspective is just magnificent. I mean, it's really neat. And I had no idea. I mean, what a gift you are to this industry.
My perspective is being informed daily by the clients I get to speak to.
Yeah.
I did, one or two of those roles for a number of years. And now, gosh, Karen, thank you for saying that. But I'm really being totally gifted by the clients I'm talking to and all their different business models and how to work and weave into those with the work I'm doing now, whether I'm facilitating for them or they're a pet screening client. It's the industry is always the gift that gives right back.
Yeah, well, what a valuable just partner you would be to have in your armory of people, and that's just really, that's exceptional. I know when we connected just briefly to set all this up, you would also mention mental health. Could you, as a passion point, could you expand on that a little too?
Absolutely. NAA has really embraced this with their committee, and it's something that I've been looking at as I was formulating the sessions for pet screening, especially the You Bet Your Assets session, and it's about the assistance animal accommodation piece. And so the mental health slid right on in there, and I don't know that initially when I was developing it for the very first time that I was aware that would occur. But it did slide right in there because it is a component of the assistance animal accommodation request, a significant component. And so I started looking at that as I was formulating and updating the session. And I also started looking at what NAA was doing and how that was coinciding with the information I was finding out there online. So I was quoting Kaiser Family Foundation, but then I saw the NAA mental and emotional health study come out, and they were lining up this industry with the population so closely, it literally just stopped me in my tracks. And recently I was able to sit for a course that gave me a designation as a mental health first aider through an outside organization. NAA was offering this opportunity as well, but they were offering it during my vacation. So I took it the week before because I didn't want to lose a step and really wanted to kind of keep tracking with, the fabulous folks who were bringing this to the industry and highlighting it so well, people like John Sons. So I took that the week before vacation, and that's sitting with me, and I hope to do more of that education. There's another educational opportunity coming up with NAA that I really hope to wrap my arms around because it's a key component. And as a property manager on site for so many years, I dealt with the mental health challenges of many of my residents, ever so much more so even in my Section 8 housing. many encounters with folks who needed really cautious care. So that's always important as well. So it's, it's such a component for this industry, from being concerned for your teammates, your residents, yourself, the industry. I mean, it just really touches everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's such an amazing, well, I guess so amazing that there's just more awareness being brought to it, and by people like yourself, because, for the apartment industry, I mean, we are just so often that, point of contact, whether it is for, our residents on a daily basis. We're the ones who are interfacing with them sometimes the very most, and really knowing how to recognize and deal with mental health challenges is so critical. And then simultaneously for, our employees, and making sure that we're, fostering that good environment. And I look at, the entire work environment and how much it's changing these days to really hopefully promote more mental health and promote a better working environment. And so, yeah, I really love that. That's a passion point for you, and that continuing as an industry to hopefully improve there. And curious when it comes to change management on that same kind of topic there, that's generally pretty challenging for teams. And I'm curious, what are your tips for really helping address that change management and embrace and adapt to different policies?
What a great question, especially in light of COVID-19. I mean, talk about mental health and stressors. Change is one of those things that is just really going to push your teams, some of them to the breaking point. And NAA's mental health survey really bore that out, stating that I think 40% of the respondents, those in the industry, had taken time off from their work in the preceding month due to not feeling emotionally well enough to do their job, right? And 12% of those took a week or longer off. So we have to manage our change. And the companies that I get to see all the time, who I've been so pleased to work with and really talk on a granular level with, like UDR and RE Carroll and Fortis and Madeira. I've just got so many of these great companies, and so many I didn't name, that have really shown me different things about the best ways to manage change process. But just to put it simply, I've seen a lot over a multitude of companies, and what I've seen that works best is a high degree of communication from the consideration point to the implementation point, and then post-implementation is incredibly important as well, because no matter how much research you do between implementation and from that point forward, you're going to continue to learn more. So I always recommend, and I've seen it work much better this way, group trainings and group pilots. People will constantly say, I want to give this a try on one or two properties. Well, that's not really a pilot. You really need, a good representative size for your portfolio, so that you have team members piloting something with a sufficient number of teammates to have that shared expectation with and those shared experiences with. So, pilot the things you're going to pilot, but work with a good enough pilot to have them have that support system and people that they can communicate and channel with. Also definitely recommend, and most every company I've spoken with does this, of course, leadership meeting with these teams at regular intervals, both before implementation and especially in the post-implementation phase of that pilot, so that they can learn what they really need to know and want to know to kind of perfect their own application of what we do or anything else you're considering changing after the fact. But critically, though, I think when we're going through change in the industry, it's delineating those early SOPs. Start off with some SOPs. Don't say we're going into this. Have some standard operating procedures right off the bat for folks, even if you're just talking a half dozen of them. Some companies will have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 SOPs. Some will go through a month or two analyzing every document they have and how this change impacts every document they have. Others will come, of course, somewhere in the middle. But in terms of, how to embrace this change, I think it comes back to the company, their mission, how they make their choices, and then how they communicate the fit of this choice into their mission and vision to their teams. For me, when I was on ops, I looked for kind of 3 overarching things, things that were making life better, either for residents, teams, or both. things that were making life safer. We try not to use the word safer in the industry, but from residents to owners to the teams, or all the above, with a hard focus on liability controls so that you're controlling risk, and then making additional revenue. And as an asset manager, I was never shy about embracing change that increased the income and the property values. So those are kind of how I made my choices. But the implementation, it's communication, communication, communication. Start out with some framework SOPs, communicate, and keep growing it forward with your teams, and let them have a big enough pilot that they have enough people on the team with them to feel that team spirit and work.
So well said. So well said. Very thorough. Your pilots must be awesome. And I hope everybody takes notes on this section from you. That's just thank you for that, Victoria. And let's hop to a quick break. And when we come back, we want to touch on your thoughts on the biggest challenges we face over the next 10 years as an industry. So noodle on that while we hop to a break.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome to your beautiful new apartment home here at Gables Point 14. As you can see, we're featuring this beautiful one-bedroom den.
Okay, welcome back. All right, challenges. Victoria, what do you see as you look into your crystal ball over the next 10 years, the things we're facing as an industry?
Well, fortunately, we all don't have to have crystal balls. We've got really great apartment association groups and leaders who really keep their eye on this for us. The Bob Pinnegers of the world, the Cindy Chettys of the world. We've got great leadership out there. But it's going to be, for me, staffing. Did I mention staffing? Just staffing. Developing team members in a way that we retain them, attracting and developing and retention. Of course, we know that's everything. But I also think that, going back to my jam and jelly, education legislation, I think it's also going to be the regulatory side. We are seeing, rent control, rent stabilization, to use a nicer word for it, coming back up again. There's always concerns about tax changes, the regulations regarding property developments, because, we have a housing shortage. We've got more of our housing going, in different directions than the standard rentals, taking more off the table. So the supply side, the regulatory side, the staffing side, each of these areas, I think, are going to be great points of concern for the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, to both of your points, one, on the staffing, it's, goes full circle back to that mental health question that we talked about, and understanding how are we going to create and foster these environments that people feel good about working in. I've always been wondering how much of that, now this post-COVID type of world, how much does that the environment go back to normal, aka like what it was before, or how much are we going to embrace kind of some of these new mental health leaps and trying to foster that new environment, and what does that look like? I think it's something that's interesting to flesh out. And then on the regulation side, you're totally right in that, I think there's going to be a lot more of housing regulation to go in place. And I always want to make sure that narrative is out there, that for us who work in multifamily are way more aligned with the people who are renting than people actually realize, and that we want that affordable housing. And it's more, in our eyes, we're trying to figure out how to make that supply and demand actually correlate so that we can get rents to be where they need versus just putting regulation to stop it in place. So I think it's just trying to get that narrative out there that we are more aligned and want to fight on that same team. So love the work that you're doing there.
Totally agree. Thank you for that. Yeah, the regulatory side and communicating with our regulatory partners, what NMHC, NAA teach us to do all the time. People like Greg Brown and Cindy Chetty, Nicole Upanu. I mean, we listen to these folks. There's a whole host of them at both organizations. I'm not leaving folks out on purpose. They're all incredibly brilliant. I mean, they have to divide these topics up among them. Their understanding has to be so deep. You get talking taxes and most people's eyes roll back in their head. But, when this is for the Apartment Association of Metro Denver, and I'll never forget Mike Ferris at the time from Valley Way saying, "You're the PAC chair. Why does that matter to me? It's, that's cool. Tell me." And he wasn't asking flippantly. He was challenging me to answer the question for him. And it was great. And I said, "Mike, what percentage of your business is with the rental housing industry?" He said 100%. I said, "So one tax law that would impact 67% of the owners in the country negatively, one tax law change would be harmful to your organization, to your business, to your future and your model." Absolutely. I said, "Well, that's why PAC funds and speaking to your members of the legislature is so important. They can make one decision that devalues properties and portfolios from East to West Coast in one decision, and one painful decision."
Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it's just about, it's such a complex environment. And it's about getting that knowledge out there and truly getting everyone knowing that it impacts all of us and being involved. So love the work you're doing there. Another question for you though here. Are there any industry viewpoints you've heard floating around that you differ on?
That's a really great question. I had a talk with Max recently over at Yardi, and we were talking about the assistance animal piece. And he said, the question that he's heard people asking and kind of wanted to pose to me was, do you feel as though the assistance animal accommodation requests are so on the rise dramatically because everybody just wants to avoid pet policies and pet pricing? Is that your normal answer? Is it the pet pricing and the restricted breeds? Is that why you think that's the biggest reason why you think this occurs? I said, actually, no, that wouldn't be my first answer. My first answer is the mental health piece again. Mm-hmm. Pre-pandemic, 1 in 10 people would raise their hand and say, "I suffer from a mental disability." Currently, sort of post-pandemic, 2021, that number rose from 1 in 10 to 4 in 10. And that is from the Kaiser Family Foundation. The information from NAA tracks identically, with 40% of the industry respondents taking time off from work due to not feeling emotionally well enough, up to 12% of those up to a week. But then we talk about, the mental health component and what are people needing in their lives because of this being on the rise. And there comes a conversation of assistance animals. And that's the overarching verbiage for either service or support animals. So we just use assistance animals as the overarching. And I think that the rise in the numbers of mental health and disabilities related to mental health, going from 1 in 10 to 4 in 10. And then in my mental health first aider course recently, hearing that 20% of adults are being diagnosed each year with some sort of mental health disorder, which is not to say it's permanent, but a mental health disorder each year. And these numbers are startling. And folks reaching out to say, when I'm at home at night and I've made it barely through my day because of these mental health disorders that I'm suffering from, there's a whole lot of that going on out there. They're reaching for these assistance animals. And I think that is the first causal link that I would offer in the rise of the assistance animal accommodation requests.
So powerful. Just everything you're sharing, Victoria. And you've had, again, just your career has touched so many parts of our industry. And even with what you're talking about with the legislation and education and mental health, I would imagine for you, you've had some mentors along the way, people that you've leaned on. Can you talk a little bit about those folks?
Oh, absolutely. So on the direct side, I've only worked for 4 companies in my career, but I had great examples of hardworking, smart owners, and or director level leaders at each one. One of my dearest was at the final company I worked for was the head of the portfolio, Linda Johnson. Linda and I worked together with a couple of other folks to put together the Charleston Apartment Association. Linda has since passed, but I came to work for her. We worked together as colleagues, and then I came to work for her and went to work for her. She invited me to lunch one day. She said, "What will it take you to come to work for me?" I was like, "Oh, that ring right there will do it." And she was so great. She took off the ring and she put it on the table. Now, at some point during that lunch, that ring left the table. I didn't see how she did it. It was a little bit of naughty magic there. I thought I was going to score. But I did get to come to work for her, and she was great. She was the one who put me on the CPM track, and she just, would talk to me like a real person and call me her second daughter. And my memories of her are absolutely memories I treasure. Today, I watch industry experts and treasure relationships with leaders like our association management teams, our chairs. Being on the board at NAA, just watching some of these folks is just amazing between the association staff and the chairs. It's incredible. One person, if I had to name one person that everybody would know that is absolutely life-altering to spend time in her sphere is Dr. Debbie Phillips. She just makes your heart pop when you're with her. You feel like you're the only person she knows at that moment and cares about. She is the queen of the present, of giving you her presence and being present for it. Wow. It's like nothing you'll ever feel. Do you guys know her?
I don't.
I don't either.
But I want to know her now.
You have to have Dr. Debbie on. She's amazing. And I don't think you'll find a human in this business who will not describe her similarly. Like when you're in her sphere, communicating with her, like she is right there with you.
What a compliment.
She's even talked to my daughter as my daughter was getting ready for college for me. Because if you're a mother with a daughter, you need other women of grace and strength, and beauty to talk to your daughter for you sometimes. It's just a moment of opportunity and grace if you can achieve it. So I put my daughter on the phone with Dr. Debbie, and she's just amazing.
Wow. Yeah. We definitely will have to look into getting her to come on because such a powerful statement there.
Yeah, show her that statement and then tell her you have.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely will. Well, what about your favorite quotes?
Oh, now you've hit a good one for me. Years ago, before vinyl lettering for your walls became affordable, I decided I wanted to paint like room appropriate quotes all around my home. I thought, well, that'll take forever. How do you do that? So let me do the vinyl. The custom vinyl was going to cost me a few $1,000s. And I was like, no, that's not affordable. So I was watching a tattoo show one day and I figured out how to get my sayings on my walls without vinyl letters by handwork. Oh. So in the living room, I have a quote from Abraham Lincoln that I love. Most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. I like that one. Really funny, across from him, I'll probably have a hard time remembering what it says, but again, room appropriate was what I was shooting for, is a quote from a Nickelback song that you can't rewind a moment in this life, right? We're watching TV, so I thought that was kind of cool for the room. Each moment's a gift, not a given right. You can't rewind a moment in this life.
That was great.
In the kitchen, I've got a quote from the Dalai Lama for the husband, because I don't cook. He's really good. It's approach love and cooking with equal abandon. That one comes from the Dalai Lama. Oh. The one I haven't painted yet that I'm going to paint over the wine bar is a quote from Galileo or one from Thomas Jefferson. I think the Galileo one went something like, wine is sunlight held together by water.
Oh my goodness. I love your room appropriateness too. and embedding those messages in your family. That's a great, talk about that positivity and deciding you're happy, especially when you're reading those quotes. They're just such good reminders.
Well, I fell off my own wagon because I had a quote from Corinthians in the bedroom, and then I repainted and never put, and put a TV where the marriage quote was, y'all. So I fell off my own wagon. So don't give me too much credit.
Oh, that's classic. I love it. Well, hey, we can't have somebody from Pet Screening on and not ask about your furry family members.
My girls. Oh gosh. So we were lazy. So we have so much going on, and we like to vacation. So we have kitty cats instead of dogs. Love dogs. There's a toy by my door and a whole stack of sticks to play with Kaya across the street when I get to play with my neighbor's dog. But for us, we have kitty cats. The eldest of my furry girls is Peachy, and she was one of my daughter's 7-year-old birthday presents. Now, my daughter last week just turned 20. So Peachy is 13 years old, and she's our senior female in the house. And she is an affection, crazed, starved child at all times. She comes when you call her. She acts like a dog. When she was younger, she would jump into your arms if you patted your chest. If you weren't paying attention to her and you walked past a piece of furniture, she'd jump on your shoulder. Like, you're not getting away from me. Then I've got Pepper Potts is my next oldest. She's a black and white kitty, and she's like a Gumby doll of joy. And she came into our world in 2015. So her name is from the Iron Man movie. And then my youngest kitty, I was sitting around one night, and the husband had a kitty in his lap and the daughter had a kitty in her lap. But mom, who takes care of the kitties, didn't have a kitty in her lap. So I just put it out there. There's 3 of us. Eventually, there's going to be 3 kitties. And then I went to a puppy and kitten shower at the local shelter. And after church one day with my daughter, I said, let's go take something to the puppy and kitten shower. Came home with Princess Natiri, named after the Avatar lead. And she's our foster failure. I said, if the other girls like her and we can work her in, she'll stay. And if we can't, then we'll keep her until she's safe to adopt, because she was like a pound when we brought her home, like 1 to 1.2 pounds when we brought her home. So those are my 3 kitty girls, and they're just gorgeous and the furry loves of our lives.
Love it. Love it. That's
what do you guys have? Ian, do you have pets?
I do. Yep. I've got 2 dogs, and they're both rescues, both
good job.
Kind of mutts, but they're a terror and great. Love them to death. And I have a 12-year-old blood orange parrotfish. So,
oh wow! I've never known a fish to last that long.
Yeah, that's why I always say it. Nobody ever sees it coming. But he's got a ton of personality too. It's pretty cool.
Oh, very cool. Karen, what about you?
I don't have anything living.
Karen, don't send your fish to Karen's house when you need to go out of town.
I would be petrified.
Me too. The fishes, they're way too fragile. Oh my gosh. We used to also have an albino hedgehog, which was something my daughter brought home from school, because she was that first run of seniors who got their whole second half of their senior years eaten up by COVID in 2020. So the school pet came to my house and lived in my office with me for a couple of years.
So generous.
Cool pet.
Yeah. And except that on the day where my daughter was holding her name was Willow, and Willow was dropping out of her hands. And I, as a mother, of course, there's a creature falling. So I stick both hands out to catch the hedgehog.
Yep.
That was painful.
Yeah, I bet.
I think so.
Learned that lesson once.
Oh, well, one last question before we let you go here. What advice would you give to somebody just starting out in the industry?
Well, Tony Blake always says, we all talk about this like we're in prison. Like, how long have you been in? Well, I've been in for 30 years, but then I got out for 2 and then I came back. Don't let that scare you guys. It is addicting. We love it. And for, so either get out now or you're going to be in forever. That's kind of it. And get your industry education as much and as quickly as you can handle it. Look for opportunities to take sessions, designation courses. And if cost-based education isn't in your immediate future, don't let that stop you. You can look up the most pressing industry matters on association pages and in many other ways, and you can start doing your own research. Make yourself the expert on your leasing package where you are. Make yourself your expert on the tenant landlord legislation and regulation in your state. What's been added to fair housing in your state. Study your job. study your job. And you don't have to have a designation course to do that, but if you can get your hands on one, do it. Absolutely do it. Your education in this industry is so important. I meet folks who've been in the industry for many, many, many years when I did the licensing course, and they had not been taught the math that we were teaching them, the Tenant Landlord Act for South Carolina that we were teaching them, the risk management that we were teaching them. And these are all important facets of the work that we do. This job touches like 360, so many topics this industry does. So enjoy it. Get lots of legislation and education under your belt because it'll really help you every day. And, listen to the folks who tell you it's a fabulous industry.
Oh, wow. Victoria, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Oh,
Thank you so much for being on with us and everything that you shared. It's, wow, what an impact you've made on this industry, and excited to see what you will obviously continue to do. So thank you for honoring us with being on today, and we just really appreciate you.
I'm the one who's honored that you guys took the time to talk with me today and that you're going to share this. I've watched some of your other Tuesday podcasts on the leasing highway, and the folks that you have had on, I'm humbled. So thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today. And I can't wait to see you get Dr. Debbie Phillips on one of your leasing highway podcasts.
All right, we put it out there.
Yeah.
Speak it into existence. We have the opportunity with the things we say to create the ethos around us. So we're going to put it out there.
Yes,
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great week, and we will see you on our next episode. Thank you so much.